there are like ways to make $1 million and then ways to make $1 million that could turn into $1 billion, right?
There are hundreds of millions of small businesses in the world. A business can basically, a few taps, stand up an AI agent for themselves. I kind of think that every business in the future, just like they have an email address and a website and a social media presence today, I think every business is going to have an AI agent that their customers can talk to in the future. And we want to enable that.
If you always knew that there was a huge opportunity with AI, but didn't quite get exactly how to take advantage of it, I think this video might clear it up. The thing that I'm talking about is software 3.0. It might sound a bit weird, but give me just a second to explain, because I think that if you're an entrepreneur or you always wanted to get into business for yourself, or you just want to stay on the cutting edge of AI, well, this might be the single biggest opportunity of our lives. So really fast, this is Andrej Karpathy, former OpenAI, highly respected AI researcher. Notice the date. This was end of 2017. He's talking about software 2.0. What is that? Well, the classical stack is the software 1.0. That's kind of what we think of as software. It's code. It's written in languages like Python, C++, etc. And it consists of explicit instructions to the computer written by a programmer, right? So basically a human, let's say human if you can't tell, and he's telling a computer what to do sort of explicitly, right? Letter by letter, typing it in and giving it instructions. By writing each line of code, the programmer identifies a specific point in program space with some desirable behavior, right? So in other words, we want something from the computer. We want this thing to do something for us. We make that happen by writing each line of code. He specifically uses that terminology there, right? Writing each line of code. That's important. So then what is software 2.0? Can you guess? Well, Andrej Karpathy, he's saying software 2.0 is written in much more abstract, human, unfriendly language, such as the weights of a neural network. No human is involved in writing this code because there are a lot of weights. Typical networks might have millions. Keep in mind, this was written in 2017. So you might imagine that there might be a little bit more than that nowadays. And coding directly in weights is kind of hard. He tried, he would. This is kind of what a neural network looks like. The neurons are connected by weights. There are these lines here. And this is somewhat similar to a human brain. We also have neurons and then the connections between those neurons that wire together stronger when they are used more often, when they are predictive of something happening. That was that whole Pavlov's dog in the response to the bell, right? So over time, as we smell something, right? So the part of our brain that smells, that is able to capture smells, like we smell food and we respond to that by, for example, with a dog, salivation, right? Because we formed those neural connections that helped us predict that certain smells mean that there's tasty food about. However, if we ring a bell, the dog has no response. There are no neural connections to indicate that a bell means that there's food. But if we start giving them food and ringing a bell, over time, the bell ringing produces, him salivating and thinking that he's about to get food. That whole episode on The Office where Jim feeds Dwight breath mints every time a bell rings. If you didn't catch that, that was literally what that whole thing was about. And that's kind of how neural networks work. All these connections create some sort of outcomes, but we don't program them ourselves. Well, unless you're Andrej Karpathy. Actually, how we approach it is we specify some goal or desirable behavior, right? Like win a game of Go. And yes, there's some, code, a rough skeleton of the code, as Andrej puts it, right? So sort of the neural net architecture. And then that neural network is trained using gradient descent, backpropagation. We're not going to really get into it because we don't quite need to understand what's happening here. By the way, if you are interested in learning more, I highly suggest Andrej Karpathy's latest thing. So he just announced it within the last few weeks. Looks like this is dated July 17th. OpenAI co-founder Andrej Karpathy announces Eureka Labs, an AI education startup. Keep this in mind. You might need it later. Just a hunch. But kind of the big takeaway about software 1.0 and software 2.0, I think, is this. This is again from Andrej Karpathy's blog, right? So sort of like this distance represents the complexity of the program, right? Something very simple to something very complex. And software 1.0 is here. That's what software can do. Again, if we're defining software 1.0 as a human being coding something up for a computer to do, that's sort of the extent of it. I mean, it's quite a bit. The entire world that runs on it is done quite a bit, but it's limited compared to Software 2.0. And with Software 2.0, instead of typing in line by line, we have a sort of process, right? So that's training the AI, right? I'll just kind of make it into a black box. And that process trains the AI. It trains the neural net to do the thing that we want it to do. We just say what we want the outcome to be. We tell it, make cute pictures of dogs. And it trains the neural network, the brain, that can make cute pictures of dogs. We tell it, learn to code stuff. And it figures out how to make the thing that learns to code stuff. Now, this is greatly simplified. Obviously, there's a lot of things that go into this data, compute, a million other things. But the point is, instead of explicitly telling it what to do, we're just kind of telling it what we want. And it then creates the thing that does the thing that we want, right? So we're kind of like a layer removed. All right, so pop quiz, hotshot. What does Software 3.0 look like, right? In terms of what we're talking about. What is the next evolution? If this is explicit directions, this is telling it kind of what we want, and it figures out how to create the thing that does it. What does the next evolution of that look like? What is 3.0? I'll add this last piece, and just that a year ago, it wasn't even obvious that this thing existed. It wasn't obvious that it would be available to us. Keep in mind, Andrej didn't even mention Software 3.0 anywhere in this blog post. That was in 2017. It wasn't even obvious at that point how this whole thing would shake out. But so at this point, you might be thinking, okay, so what's Software 3.0? Why don't you just tell us? So first of all, here's Mark Zuckerberg talking about his latest release, Llama 3.1, the open source AI giant that is at GPT-4 level. Now, if you saw that interview, feel free to skip forward. I'll have the video chapter set up so you can skip to the next part. But whether you've seen it or not, pay specific attention to what he's saying that you're allowed to build, what you're able to build with the big bad model that he released, the model that he refers to as the teacher model.
So I'm really excited to see what people do with that, especially now that we're making it so that the community policies around Llama allow people to use it as a teacher model to distill and fine tune and basically create whatever other models they want with it.
And here's another quick clip where he's talking about what he believes will be the final result of people using these open source models to create agents, etc. Is he talking about everything running on top of the sort of base Llama model, just sort of one model to rule them all? Or is it more fragmented than that?
I think we just have the ability in the business model to basically build in the most advanced models in the world and offer it to everyone for free. So I think that that's a kind of a huge advantage. It's really easy to use from all of our apps. So I'm pretty excited about how that's going. So that's, we have the basic assistant, and I think that that's going to be a big deal. But even more than that, a lot of what we're focused on is giving every creator and every small business the ability to create AI agents for themselves, making it so that every person on our platforms can create their own AI agents that they want to interact with. And if you think about it, these are just huge spaces, right? So there are hundreds of millions of small businesses in the world. And one of the things I think is really important is basically making it so with a relatively small amount of work, a business can basically, a few taps, stand up an AI agent for themselves that can do customer support, sales, communicate with all their people, all their customers. I kind of think that every business in the future, just like they have an email address and a website and a social media presence today, I think every business is going to have an AI agent that their customers can talk to in the future. And we want to enable that for all of those. So it's going to be hundreds of millions, maybe billions of kind of small business agents. Similar deal for creators. There are more than 200 million people on our platforms who consider themselves creators, who basically use our platform in a way that is primarily for building a community, putting out content. Feel like it's kind of like a part of their job is doing that, and they all have this basic issue, which is that there aren't enough hours in the day to engage with their community as much as they'd like. And likewise, I think that their communities would generally want more of their time, but again, not enough hours in the day. So I just think there's going to be a huge unlock where basically every creator can pull in all their information from social media, can train these systems to reflect their values and their business objectives and what they're trying to do, and then people can interact with that. It'll be almost like this almost artistic artifact that creators create that that people can kind of interact with in different ways. And that's not even getting into all the different ways that I think people are going to be able to create different AI agents for themselves to do different things. So I think we're going to live in a world where there are going to be hundreds of millions of billions of different AI agents, eventually probably more AI agents than there are people in the world, and that people are just going to interact with them in all these different ways. So that's part of, that's the product vision. Obviously, there's a lot of business opportunity in that. That's where we want to go make money. So we're not going to make money from selling access to the model itself, because again, we're not a public cloud company. We will make money by building the best products. An important ingredient to the best products is having the best models, which having the best kind of ecosystem around open source will help us do. So that's why it's kind of all aligned for us, and why this is going to end up, I think, being really valuable for us to build the highest quality products that we can, and have the best business results by kind of building out this open source community. But it's also why it's all philosophically aligned, right? We just don't believe that there's going to be kind of one big AI, whether it's a product or a model that everyone uses. We kind of fundamentally believe in having this broad diversity and different set of models, and that every business and people are just going to want a lot of their own stuff that they're going to make. And I think that that's kind of going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of what makes this interesting.
So this is Sarah Guo. She was recently on the My First Million podcast, where she discusses some of the startups and AI fields that she's very interested in investing. And she's got a very specific sort of investment thesis, aka what she thinks will really move the needle in terms of AI startups. And this is where she kind of spells out what Software 3.0 is. Take a listen.
And I think the next level of like value and impact is definitely going to be fine-tuning to specific voice.
And what's your overarching investment thesis? So you have this thing called Software 3.0, what is Software 3.0?
Yeah. Okay. So the seed for that phrase, Software 3.0, it comes from actually an essay that Andrej Karpathy wrote years ago about Software 2.0. And the base premise here is that like you had to write a lot of software by hand in a prior generation before machine learning. And then Software 2.0, Andrej, worked at Tesla, was working on autopilot, was really about data set labeling, right? You are teaching a machine learning model by the data you choose to put into the pipeline, how to do new tasks. Software 3.0 is the idea that the next generation of software, a lot of it is about manipulating foundation models, and they're called foundation models because they have a lot of capability out of the box. You don't need to train them from scratch. You just need to give them like guidance, reinforcement, the information specific to your business. And so an example would be like Sean was talking about for his lead capture intake form voice bot. Like he doesn't need to go train a model. He doesn't need to go like collect data for that software application. Like the voice agent is a software application. He just needs to like make sure it's plugged into his scheduling system and his database of candidates and be able to retrieve the right information about the business and like, respond consistently to customers in a certain tone, right? And so that's more about like manipulating a bunch of this base work that people like labs have already done for you. And the premise here is like that last mile of getting a foundation model to be like something that serves all these use cases in the real world that, maybe the research labs think of as niches. Like the world is composed of very large niches. And so I think it's a really big opportunity for entrepreneurs and for us.
By the way, that's not the only investor and fund investing in this idea. We also have A16Z that's betting it big on some fields that intersect with AI, games, apps, infrastructure, growth, etc. They're very interested in things where AI intersects finance, for example, as well as games, healthcare, etc. But getting back to our kind of original question, if 1.0 is us humans creating the code to make the computers do what we want, 2.0 is kind of this idea of where we tell this sort of process what we want it to do, and then it then goes and kind of creates the AI neural net brain to the thing that we want it to do. To me, I'm seeing 3.0 kind of the next iteration of that as taking this AI brain, let's say it's the big base model, let's say it's Llama 3.1, the 405 billion parameter model, this thing that's extremely expensive to train, to create, but it's open source and it's very, very good. It's also kind of unwieldy. You can't just run it on your laptop, but you might want to use it for a million different use cases for your business, for your personal life, etc. What we're able to do with this sort of teacher model is use it to create synthetic data to train smaller models that are customized for our specific use case. So this thing kind of bottles up its thoughts and creates some sort of a training set for a smaller model to run customer service or help you with your homework or run your calendar or answer your text messages or anything where having that intelligence might be useful to you. This is kind of what the research behind Orca 2 from Microsoft kind of showed us early on, is we're able to take this big, huge, unwieldy, expensive model, create a sort of data set from it, and train the kind of tiny model on top of it. And this model is very, very effective at doing that thing. So let's call that software 3.0. Now, none of this is official. We're kind of making these numbers and stuff up as we go along, but it's just to illustrate a concept. But so what's the point of all this? Basically, think of this as a line from 0% to 100% here. And this is kind of the penetration of AI into all of the businesses in the United States, in the world, wherever you are. What percentage of businesses currently are using kind of their own homespun AI to automate everything that they can with AI, to add intelligence to any of the tasks that they're doing where it's applicable, right? So I don't know what that number is, but it's low. I'm going to say 1%, although I doubt that's anywhere as high as that. And similar how to back in the days when computers came out, right? 0% of businesses, at some point, 0% of businesses used computers. Once they became good and useful and inexpensive, maybe 1% of businesses use computers. And then over time, it approached 100%. Nowadays, close to 100% of businesses use some sort of computers, desktop phones, whatever, something with microchips in it to help them run their business in one way or another. We are about to see the same thing happen with AI. We're going to go from some tiny percentage of businesses use this to run their business. And over the next X number of years, whether that's 5 years, 10 years, 15, that number is going to start climbing towards 100%. This is also going to happen for students in school, for a lot of our personal stuff. And all that AI isn't going to be developed by coders, coding it line by line. No. Is it all going to be developed by these big AI labs using their massive training clusters to create these giant models, or maybe even smaller models? But the point is, yeah, they'll create ones for big use cases, the profitable use cases, but there'll be a million custom special jobs where AI will be needed for that special handcrafted use case. And developing that special sort of, that homemade AI, that artisan AI, right? Whatever you want to call it. Well, it'll be made from these big open source models, trained, created, fine-tuned, whatever you want to call that. This is kind of the process that we're referring to as software 3.0. So it'll be trained and then deployed into those businesses and people's lives, and everything from thermostats to monitoring security cameras to, everything you can possibly think of. And this process will probably not be quite as technical as, for example, writing code. Definitely not as technical as understanding deep learning and neural nets and doing kind of like this sort of work. My guess is that 20 years from now, you have kids kind of spinning up their own custom little AI models to help them, keep track of their Pokemon, whatever. Now, I'm not going to unpack how big of an opportunity this is because I'll probably undersell it. And in fact, me trying to sell it to you isn't the point of this. Maybe you see it, maybe you don't. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But I said this before, in the future, running businesses will kind of look like managing your Factorio base. Everything's more or less automated, and you're just kind of tweaking the different things, the different processes and systems to optimize the performance. I might have been wrong about that because there's literally a guy on Twitter X that's using a large language model to, can you guess, to automate Factorio. Now, I've been tracking this project with great interest. He just posted a 3-week update, and I do want to kind of highlight this project that he's doing because I find it just endlessly fascinating. So the few minutes that he's doing the update, I'll post this right now to kind of close off this video. Check it out. I'll leave links to his profile below. But as you watch this, ask yourself this. As this field progresses and it becomes easier and easier to add this intelligence, whether that's large language models or maybe in a number of years we'll have some other sort of type of frontier models, anywhere we could use help making decisions or keeping an eye for something or automating something, it seems like these AI neural nets could be trained to do that specific thing for whatever specific use case you want. It seems like this is going to be everywhere in every facet of our lives, helping us with pretty much everything that we're doing. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Am I crazy, or is this going to be bigger than the computer, the internet, the cell phone? Let me know in the comments. Check out this Automating Factorio with Large Language Models video. My name is Wes Roth, and thank you for watching.
Guys, it's been 3 weeks since I made the I want to automate all of Factorio tweet, and I thought it made sense to make a progress video about everything that happened in between. So the first week, I essentially just spent learning Lua, learning the Factorio modding libraries and so on. And then the next 2 weeks, I worked on this library. If you go to the GitHub link on the tweet, it should take you to this page. And here you can find a bunch of remote interfaces that, like the mod that I created, Git provides you. So you can walk to entities like Cole, you can mine entities, you can put things inside boxes, you can put things inside furnaces. It has a bunch of features. It still needs a lot more. So it is like work in progress right now. But someone did raise like a pull request to fix like my pathing library or pathing code. Yeah, I think it's just going to improve over time. So this code, let me show you how to install it. So essentially you just need this one file. It's like a 700 line Lua mod for Factorio. So if you go, just clone the repo, go to your sort of game folder. So this is where my game is stored. And then go to your mods folder within that and just clone the repo that I showed you. Once you have this, you can just open up Factorio like normal, and it should have the mod installed. So let me show you. Yeah, so you just start a new game, just the normal steps, skip the intro. And now if you go to sort of the items here, let's just go and walk towards the Cole entity. So I'm going to do that right now. And you can see here, it sort of like finds the Cole entity. Then you can do the same thing to mine it. Yeah, so this is super cool because now your agent doesn't have to like actually look at the screen, look where the goal is. It can just focus on thinking on how to play the game, how to win the game. It should make it a lot easier for people to make agents on this. Yeah, so my plan for the next week is to sort of create a bunch of models, which is going to be my attempt to beat the game. I know that the library doesn't have enough things, so I'm going to keep adding more interfaces for agents to play. But where I'm creating data sets right now is called Glaive. It's a startup that I work at. It's glaive.ai. And here I'm creating a bunch of models. So this one I'm sort of using to sort of take an input. Like this one says, I want to walk to the nearest iron ore. And then the command is like the command that I need. So I'm currently fine-tuning a bunch of models. So like this one I can fine-tune right now. I'm just going to use Phi because it's going to run easily on my 4090. So yeah, this is training right now. But I do have like a fuck ton of sort of, I have so many data sets right now that I need to fine-tune on. But I'm going to open source all these models eventually. To sort of make it a lot easier for everyone to use. And right now, this is not public yet, but I'm sort of working on a bunch of scripts. So this is using Grok's function calling tool that we at Glaive also worked with them to create. And then I sort of have just code to like go ahead and alt tab essentially into Factorio, press the command button and then sort of type commands in. So yeah, basically it's going to be a lot better next week, I'm going to just give you like a bunch of models and like, yeah, just going to open source a bunch of stuff. Anyway, I'm just going to keep yapping. So I'm just going to leave and see you guys whenever.